Tomorrow, people in two Maine cities will pause to mark a solemn anniversary. It was 100 years ago this month that the Ku Klux Klan came to Saco and Biddeford.
207's Don Kerrigan shows us the impact the Ku Klux Klan had in Maine and the communities it targeted.
They have a long history as high school football rivals. But most of us may look at Biddeford and Saco as one place, with a river down the middle. But 100 years ago, they were very different cities. That difference symbolized by the mill, where thousands of immigrants, French and Irish and others, labored making cloth.
I would say that it was split along the river.
Alan Cassavant, Biddeford native, retired history teacher and former mayor, says the mill owners and managers lived in Saco, the workers in Biddeford, and most of those immigrants had a different religion.
Saco was still largely Protestant, but most of the Catholics, because most of the immigrants lived here. This is where the tenement buildings were.
And into these socially divided communities, in 1924 came the Ku Klux Klan.
I think most people in Maine have no idea about that history.
For a few years, in fact, the Klan was very active in Maine. This famous photo of a Klan march through downtown Milo in 1923 seems shocking even today.
All of these KKK marches were happening in predominantly mill towns.
That's Anatole Brown from the Saco Museum.
You would see it happening in Lewiston. You would see it happening in places like, all the mill towns around Maine.
The immigrants and the Catholics.
Everybody who's not white Protestant, right?
Right. So you had that nativism that was always lurking in the background.
I mean, you had the Governor Brewster of Maine, who was apparently had some Klan affiliations, and accordingly he had kind of little minions of mayors in each town, like Rockland, Portland, Saco, where they had Klan ties.
Brown says that when the Klan announced a big rally and march in Saco for Labor Day 1924, Saco's mayor said okay.
John G. Smith, who was the mayor of Saco at that time, ran as a Klan affiliate. And his position, he actually ran on the ticket that he was 100% American. And he promised that there would never be any Catholic schools built in Saco. And he also promised to go along with Governor Brewster's idea that all parochial funding for parochial schools in the state of Maine will be finished.
The plan was supposedly for the Klan to march from Saco to Biddeford, where that city's mayor said no.
And that's where Mayor Drapo of Biddeford said, "You're not coming here," and he put reinforcements, police and firemen on both sides of the river.
There was a war of words between the mayors. Smith in Saco saying if Biddeford roughnecks came to town, they would get what's coming to them. Biddeford's Drapo fired back, "I wish to warn the Kluxers and their friends to remain in the friendly precincts of Saco." Alan Cassavant says there was opposition in Saco as well.
When the Klan was proposing to march into Biddeford, on the other side of the river, they were jeered.
In Biddeford, normally rival groups of French and Irish also band together, ready to fight off the anti-Catholic Klan. But there was not much of a fight. About 300 Klan members showed up and did not try to march into Biddeford.
In that sense, it kind of fizzled out.
It fizzled, but again, just the idea that they could get some people to do that, it just shows the power of the Klan.
They have found no photos of that event, but the Klan came back.
This photo is actually the second march.
The next year, Labor Day 1925, they posed in front of Saco's brand new public school, still in use today.
I don't think that the township was alarmed. However, in both cases, the KKK burned crosses on the lawns of the school.
Anatole Brown says the Klan fervor in Maine dwindled after that, but memories remained.
As a boy in Biddeford of French-American ancestry, I had heard stories about what had happened.
Jason Cody now teaches history at Thornton Academy in Saco, where the KKK is part of the lesson.
It often is a real surprise, and students are shell-shocked.
So he went to local leaders and convinced them to do something together to mark the 100th anniversary of that sad event. Alan Casavant calls it a teaching moment.
And the rhetoric that was being used by members of the Klan, by the nativists, by the white supremacists, those words are essentially the same words that are being used 100 years later, even though the targets might be different.
Lessons Jason Cody found in a century-old editorial in a Biddeford French-language newspaper.
Anyone who is not against the Klan is in fact in favor of that organization.
And in the Saco Museum,
This is the whole robe, yes.
there are other memories of what happened 100 years ago. A robe from the Ku Klux Klan, worn or at least owned by someone in a local family.
So this particular one was donated. I do not know how the family came across this one.
This robe is normally packed away, but like the Klan rallies themselves, it will always be here. Not a proud part of their local history, but one definitely not to forget.
Tuesday's observance of the 100th anniversary of the march will take place at 3 o'clock at the Main Street Bridge in Biddeford, where the current mayors will meet in the middle to shake hands and say a few words. Then everyone will move a short distance away to Mechanics Park, right across the street from the mill complex.
Should be pretty powerful.